Hello everybody, welcome. Today is January 27th, 2026. I'm extremely grateful for my life, for my incarnation as a human being. We often are inclined to focus on the difficulties and suffering, confusion, loss of communal spirit, intelligence, integrity, virtue. I am. However, we did not come here to simply enjoy the world, though that is part of what draws us, I suspect, into incarnation, is the possibility space of the adventure and the danger of having physical bodies. We came on urgent missions, and every child knows them in their heart. And many of their parents are exposed, and their spirits of insight and wonder and awe and hope and dreaming and love and communion are resurrected by the proximity of the children, who in no way ever are merely human. None of us are merely human. And this is one of the prevailing, domineering, and debilitating fictions of the commons, that you are just a human being. There's zero chance of that, whether you have metaphysics or not. Everything on earth is time-space, enacted, embodied, the characters, priorities, the purposes, or rather the purposive intelligences. I've often heard the question, well, what is the purpose of being alive? And the answer from science is something bizarre and terrifying. It's survival and reproduction, right? These are functions. So the entire manifold of purposive intelligences is collapsed, and you get the stick figures as the result. And what are the stick figures? Nonsense. Like nonsense masquerading as the ultimate truth, right? The pure derivative, having evicted all subjective, interior, psychic, spiritual, and transcendental nonsense. Right? Then you get the dead fork. Right? Oh, it's survival of the fittest, which is basically just a lie. A weaponization of findings around the time of Darwin, primarily distorted in order to authorize and validate the fictions of industry, the fictions of colonialism, the fictions that some, quote, races of humans, which there really aren't even any races, this is another fiction, are superior by nature to others, and thus authorized to dominate them, manipulate them, capture them, enslave them, control them, right? Because why? Well, survival of the fittest is the only law. As if there were lawgivers up there going like, and thou shalt do this. Thou shalt rip apart the living world and reduce it to fictions and tokens and representations of what you've destroyed, And then thou shalt sell those at ever increasing prices to the enslaved peoples, while further obliterating the living womb of their origins, what the humans abstractly refer to as, quote, the environment, unquote. Now, if you think about this word environ, I don't know the specific etymology of the viron morpheme, or obviously this is the same root from which we get virus, but the implication from a clinical perspective is something like the field of all contagions. Right? But if you flip that over to the other side of this coin, you see the transcendental, more than merely living field of relationships, synergies, symbiosis, communion. Communion as raising the bar for all beings, right? Like in the way that a rising tide lifts all boats. And what is the bar and what is the tide? Well, the bar is our capacity to continuously generate in, on, and as the living world a place that is home to all beings, all hearts, all dreams, all minds, in the deep and abiding recognition of the unity of all beings. Their shared origin not merely in history, but in this moment. And by shared, I mean co-generated, generated together. And this feature that we call, quote, the environment, is really, can be usefully understood as the synergy of all preservative behaviors, all medicinal behaviors, all nurturing behaviors that enrich that field for the present and future participants in that field, for the sake of the historical participants and what they gave of themselves and their lives. What we could say they sacrificed to engender, nurture, evolve, develop, and relate with the myriad intelligences that comprise the biosphere. If there was ever a holy mission, this is certainly it. And if there was ever an unholy mission, it's what the humans are presently doing. Except, unfortunately, it's not a unholy mission, it's every possible unholy mission. And what does unholy mean? It means to eat away, right? To digest and destroy the origins of intelligence, transcendence, spirit, heart, mind, life, engagement of human beings and all other beings. To rip that apart and to take the sort of skeletal remains of that and turn it into representations of what was destroyed. Tokens, money, weapons. It's kind of a ridiculous thing to say, but with the funding that the humans have devoted to the military, we could have established 9 utopias, planet-wide, so easily. It's like right at hand. But it's not the funding that is the core matter. It is the purposive, opposite of spirit that produces war and commerce, industry, prisons, and defection from everything that is true and veritable, whether or not there is any such thing as metaphysics. You can completely abstract metaphysics from this argument. You still have the same exact situation. Defection. representation. Tokens instead of beings, dead terrain instead of living places, cities instead of forests, nuclear bombs instead of universities, death instead of life, nightmare instead of dreaming, collapse instead of natural, effusive profusions of vitality and virtue and intelligence, insight, awareness, love. So I got the other night a kind of another key accidentally. I have a close friend who was visiting. And my friend has a number of friends who are quite musical. In fact, his partner is musical. And a couple of his musical friends are fairly famous. Very, very talented, very skillful. And often when he visits such friends, they want to make music together. But my friend has no real experience of this. That's not entirely true. He has experiences of sort of messing around with them, but feeling as if he doesn't have the tools to really participate because he's had no training and very little exposure to musical instruments as a way of learning and being and growing and seeing and healing and loving. And in my view, it's weird. There's a phone on this bench. Is that by chance your phone?
Oh, I have mine.
Okay. Okay. I didn't want to, it's not a phone, it's a calculator. I didn't want to touch it without asking you in case it was yours, right? Yeah, it's a calculator.
I'm sure that someone will come and try to, when they remember the...
Yes, okay. Nice to speak with you today. Bye-bye. In my view, there are many paths to insight, wonder, the resurrection of our curiosity, playfulness, and passion, the revitalization of our interiority and relationships and communal intelligences, our creative intelligences, which were central to our childhood, absolutely pivotal. But were like, the environment were denuded by exposure to representational cognition, representational behavior, the layer of representational behavior that the humans create and sustain on Earth, and enculturation. So we're told that we grow out of playfulness and imagination, creativity and joy. Every artist knows this is impossible. This cannot be what happened. What happens is, via exposure to an array of prisoneering and highly captured systems, these assets are punished, reshaped, amputated, reforged in the image of representations. Right? Consider the PhD, not in itself necessarily a bad thing, but it's the representation, right? It's the credential of deep and abiding passion for learning in some specific branch of the tree of representational knowledge that humans promote as authoritative. So I was showing my friend the extremely miraculous instrument that I still find staggering every time I touch it. And this is how it really should be with any instrument. I have a very similar experience of the piano, because the sensitivities and the way the piano draws one toward importing the impossible into physicalization, expression, art, healing, learning, synchronization. It's just astonishing. It's it's wildly non-ordinary. I sometimes joke that, people are like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's an angel with 88 keys." What are you talking about? Yeah, the piano is all musical instruments, really, with the possible weird correlate of a bicycle. These instruments are, in a sense, the closest representation of what an angel is or can become in relation with us, and what we can become in relation with them, of all the physical objects I've ever encountered. A microscope's pretty good, a telescope's pretty good, but you don't, those are only instruments of visual seeing. What you would really like is to have something like a macroscope. C.F. Piers Anthony, strongly recommend you read this book. You want something that your intelligences will be nourished and transformed with, in relation with, right? Many intelligences, not one. Yeah? Your nervous system itself, your mind, what you are capable of conceiving of, becoming, transforming, arising with, communing with. And musical instruments are just, other than something like a dog or a cat, which is a developmental companion, and in this sense much like an angel with an asterisk next to it. I don't mean like the Christian idea, or necessarily even the Jewish idea, or any idea, because whatever an angel might be, it is necessarily beyond ideas. But the humans can't stand that, so anything that stands in that place, they're going to attack it with every clinical and dismissive method they can possibly develop or deploy. So my friend, when I was showing him this impossible instrument that I feel so privileged to have discovered and be able to play with, the Osmos, extremely sensitive keyboard, sensitive to pressure changes, time, side-to-side movement, up and down movement, speed of hitting the key. And, the piano has some of these features, the speed of hitting the key, right, and the sensitivity of how the key contacts the strings. Presumably you have an acoustic piano, which, wow, what an acoustic piano is one of the most astonishing things I've ever encountered in terms of something a human built. More astonishing to me really than computers, although computers are very weird. So my friend remarked that he didn't know any chords, and I recognized in his remark that he felt that knowing some chords would be the key to becoming somewhat musical, being able to explore his musical curiosity and nature with the keyboard. I sensed that he felt, well, there's this barrier, I don't have the most basic understanding, I am missing it. So it's very simple to teach someone in about 20 minutes the full simple version of major and minor chords, which are three note composites, drawn from the major and minor scales, and since you have 12 tones, C through C, right, that's one cycle, one octave. C, C sharp, D flat, those are the same. So the sharp flat are the same notes, and they are the black keys. So it goes C, C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, A, B, C. This is the 12-note cycle. So you can teach someone all 12 of those triads very easily. You take the first, third, and fifth interval of a major scale, play them simultaneously. That produces a C chord if your root is C. And then you drop by a half step the third to produce the minor chord, which is the first note, the third note, and the fifth note of the minor scale. There are many other scales: harmonic minors, Aeolian minor, Hyperlydian, Mixolydian, etc., etc., etc. There are some reasonably fixed number of scales, but since you have world systems of music, you have microtonal musical systems and all kinds of amazing things to explore. But you don't need to understand the entire lay of the land to produce beautiful music on a piano. In fact, if I can sit with someone for 15 minutes, I will have them producing beautiful music on the piano. Will it be extremely sophisticated? No. Will it be profoundly beautiful? Not a difficult target. You can do that. This is one of the tragedies of music education. What we should really mostly teach people first is how to, without knowledge of technical, the underpinnings of Western music and so forth, music theory, to just produce something that is beautiful and pleasing and exciting to make with your fingers and the keyboard. Like finger painting for children. Right? So I taught my friend 24 chords in about 20 minutes. And then he at least had kind of a foundation that he could carry with him. And we practiced it, explained a few other features. And then he said, but there's this song I really would like to play. What do you think? And I was like, all right, let's take a look at it. And it was too complex for his current, possibly even, like I would have to study it to be able to play it at present. I'm about 9 months, 10 months into my piano journey. But I've been a musician for forever, a naive musician without theory. Don't even know what key I'm playing in. I write tunes, I can play tunes, but I have no idea consciously of keys and theory underlying them. I could sit down and elucidate or map those things. It would be tedious, but I can do it. I can even transcribe music. But this is a side topic. So we downloaded some sheet music for the song. It was from Chrono Trigger. And it's a very interesting composition, in my view. It is I really like things that are stirring and that have a kind of how to put it, momentousness to them. And it had these qualities. So I figured out the sort of one of the primary features of the music, which was the repetition of a specific slight arpeggio in a certain rhythm. An arpeggio is a sequence of notes within some key or scale system. Or it is the sequential playing of the notes of what could be chords if they were played simultaneously. The notes. So we figured that out, and then he was able to learn that fairly quickly and execute it with, effectively zero keyboard skill, right? Just by trying over and over again for, 20 minutes or something, maybe less. And I think he found that quite exciting. Now, I just want to bookmark where I'm going here because I tend to birdwalk a bit. But there are interesting little side features that are important to, I think, shine some light on in our in our intelligence and imagination, our curiosity. So then we practiced some more, and I let him play around with the Osmos on his own. And he did some amazing things on the Osmos, especially when I left him alone. And thankfully I recorded it because really it was his first experience of making music himself without knowledge, right, of any musical system, without technical knowledge. Right? He's been exposed to music all his life. He loves music. So he was creating. It was so profound and beautiful. I was so excited. This particular friend is very technically minded and has a profound affinity for visual systems. He builds websites and so forth. And builds systems that run on WordPress and stuff. He's making one for me right now. That's very important to me. And so a couple days later, we were sitting down, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. Let me see what I can do, or something very close to what he said. And effectively, what he was looking for was some kind of a toy, totally relevant, that would simplify. So he complained about the sophistication of music notation and how we should have done better than this by now. He's also an optimizer. He's a systems optimizer. So he has this natural concern with when things don't work fluidly. And how we should have come much farther by now with many of the systems that we serve and are captured by. But he thinks of them a bit more like musical instruments, right? They allow you to, of course, electronic technology is very oriented around this. They allow you to cause to exist something which previously did not exist, and to make that useful. And that's the primary value system of the left hemisphere. What's its function? Is it useful? Is it efficient? Representationally, energetically, relationally, right? Can I get something done in 3 steps that used to take 40? This is optimization. So he said, I want something, and he had an example from YouTube. This is a common example in modern keyboard videos where it's a little bit like Guitar Hero, right? You see these lights falling down in a grid, and they have different lengths toward the keyboard. And then as they hit the keyboard, the length represents the time of the key press, and which ones hit first and second and so on represent the sequence of notes. So he was showing me this, and he was like, do you think this is a good toy? Because I want to be able to do this more efficiently. Natural, totally natural design. Who would not want that? I want it, but I don't only want that. So then, this is where the insight arose for me. And I was trying to explain that what you don't want is some technology that makes this process easier for you, right? So that it's convenient and efficient and effective. What you want, I think, now of course I'm using this word "you" in what I mean is, from my perspective, what is desirous, right? What one would benefit from desiring. You're good. What you want are more simultaneous domains of engagement. And so I sang the praises of music notation, and there are many different forms. There are exotic forms, jazz charts, all kinds of crazy stuff. There are exotic forms of music notation. There are also ancient forms from the early days of writing and so forth. So this was the insight. What I said, what you want is you want more avenues of engagement with your body, your mind, your heart, your creativity, your passion, your urge to make and do and be and see and learn and play and grow. So you want like 15 domains of engagement, not 3. Okay? And efficiency, while useful and reasonable to preserve as a background priority in the study of a musical instrument, depending on your goals, but music will change your goals. And if it doesn't, I'm not sure you're playing music yet. It should. These are the songs of the muses. This is a non-trivial thing or aspect of existence, right? Like you hear people, I heard some Delta Force guy last night on Danny Jones, kind of ridiculously, but also interestingly, making this claim that we've heard all over the place, but particularly lately. I remember Ross Coulthart and one of his journalist companions talking about a filmmaker who was making shows about the non-ordinary and the paranormal and how the Navy came to him, and a strange man showed up at a party that was invite only with a little sheet of paper on which was written a strange equation, and gave it to him and said, put this in a vault, open it in 20 years and you'll see what's going on. And we haven't seen this piece of paper, I don't know where it is. But the man said something like energy, frequency, vibration. These are the keys. And I heard this Delta Force guy saying, parroting something similar. I found his reportage of his military experience rather fascinating. But his political views were not without merit, but bizarrely warped toward things that I mistrust. In any case, frequency, energy, frequency, vibration, EFV. If everything is this, then music is one of the closest things you can participate in that is directly evocative of, expressive of. Music is a kind of a UFO for your developmental self. So I explained to my friend, when you're reading sheet music and you're learning, however slowly and however ineffectively, quote unquote, to translate marks on a page into living sound. Right? You have so many more domains of engagement than if you're just trying to find a toy to help you figure out which keys to press in what order and over what time periods. And I explained that modernity, this was the actual insight, and it kind of blew my mind. And it's still blowing my mind, which is why I'm having this little talk right now with myself and you. In modernity, what happens is we reduce the accessible domains of engagement, generally, and we think of this as convenience, okay? Right? Because you have to interact with the phenomena less often, less intimately, less attentively, less intelligently, less creatively, whatever the phenomenon is. So suppose it's getting food. Right? Well, the refrigerator slows down time inside that box so that you don't have to go get food as often, and you don't have to relate with the process of acquiring food or generating food in relation with some environment. And the oven is kind of similar, where we might once have, for example, hand-sliced, hunted, hand-sliced meats, strung them out over a rack to dry into jerky and so forth. Now we can just produce the half, digested food by putting it in the oven over some period short period of time. These are time-changing things. Yeah. So I realized that the whole idea of convenience, and I was aware of this a long time ago, is to reduce our engagement, reduce avenues of engagement, reduce the number of avenues of engagement, and replace them with representations of benefit. Now, it's not always a pure representation. Sometimes there's some actual benefit in there. But what you lost in obtaining that benefit is almost never accounted for, right? And this is the problem with efficiency as a goal. For a mechanical process, you definitely want efficiency. For a developmental process, you need more than mere efficiency. Efficiency isn't bad, but if that's the goal, you lose sight of the relational assets and organs that are crucial in a complex way to our developmental needs and capacities, faculties. So the insight was that one aspect of how we lose our humanity and how this loss becomes ramified over time is the reduction in the number of domains of engagement: physical, neurological, behavioral, intellectual, emotional, relational, developmental, metabolic, circadian, visual, tactile, right? All the domains of our potentials for sensing, temporal especially. Yeah? We just snip these off these dimensions of engagement and we replace them with a figure that represents efficiency or convenience. And with each new advancement in this behavior, we are amputating our interiority and replacing it with representations. And in this case, the representation would be to play a single song, to learn to play a single song as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. Not necessarily the wrong idea, but when you're a musician, you want to preserve, you need to preserve the domains of engagement, because those are domains that feed creativity and enthusiasm and wonder and ecstasy. Yeah. Look at the concert pianist. This being is in a state of ecstasy, and it's the marriage, the ongoing wedding moment of technical proficiency with creative passion and sensitivity. So this is a place where the dreaming mind is in natural superiority to the waking mind. The waking mind handles the technical facility. The dreaming mind handles the invocation, the evocation. And I found this very staggering because I had not noticed this particular problem in representational cognition previously. Number of domains of engagement, how these are reduced, evicted, transformed into representations, compression. They undergo lossy compression, to produce this result, which is, the twin demon of utility, efficiency, convenience. And that word must have a very interesting etymology. Con is obviously with. Venience, I don't know. But I'm suspecting this has to do with bodies. and something like loss of virtue, but I'm looking at the vene morphine or phoneme. So this was really staggering to me and beautiful. This realization that what we need to do with and for each other is to generate relational, creative play and adventuring contexts in which we get more domains of engagement, like we resurrect the the fossils of our previous symphonic capacities for engagement, which in many cases now are very monodimensional, or like you get a single domain, right? Do the doom scrolling, read the news, put the TV dinner in the microwave. And the richness that arises when there's more domains of engagement is primordial and absolutely foundational to every organism on this world. This is why living environments are complex, even when they appear simple. Right? You have the ocean, which before it was mostly obliterated by humans, one of the most profuse, complex, multi-intelligent, right, fields imaginable. Imagine fish schools that are 50 million strong, or even, greater, and that there's millions of such different schools in the ocean. Funny that we call a collection of fish a school, yeah? Implying that in unity of many disparate beings, the result is intelligence. Mostly the opposite of how we actually think of and enact intelligence now, which we are attempting, apparently, to offload for convenience, for efficiency, into machines? Okay, great. Good luck with that. If you want a dead planet, keep going in that direction. You'll get there right quick. So you can think about the ocean, right, which is vital, wet, profuse. You can think of it as the living womb from which the land beings arose. And then you can turn that over and look at the desert, which on the surface looks devoid of life, very self-similar everywhere you look, but is secretly brimming. Right? You have the same principle, but concentrated into little branches and so forth. This is a polarity. So the seeming deadness and simplicity of the desert is actually hiding incredible, complex, deeply intimate. Right? Survival depends on intimacy in the desert, so you get things like the moth that pollinates the Joshua tree that normally emerges with the flowering of the trees and only pollinates this tree and reproduces its children in the pollen bundles that the tree produces. I may be getting some of this slightly wrong. Right? So you have incredible intimacy. These two organisms absolutely rely on this single channel of progeneration together, right? They are each other's reproductive partners. And without the moth, the Joshua tree cannot reproduce. Without the Joshua tree, the moth cannot reproduce. This is very single channel dependence. I've heard that Joshua trees are blooming in the wrong time right now, which is the kind of thing I expected, because we are desynchronizing the relationships in the environments through toxification and exposure to the results of mechanization on our world. The humans seem, as a species, entirely blind to this. I mean, they have some vague, concern about don't poison things and don't just make endless machines, but that concern is vague and largely ineffective. There's a place where you would like some efficiency. Right? That's a place where you could get valuable efficiency. Somehow get the humans as a species to understand what not to be doing, so that their world can at least persist as a living world. There's nothing you have ever done. Now, this isn't the only metric of value, but nothing that the humans have ever done will matter from this angle if we snuff the planet with the results. Or even if we just make it inhospitable to complex organisms. We don't have to snuff it. And I don't care about the arguments, oh, the Earth will recover, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit about that. That's a bunch of blather. So we want, I remember my first Tai Chi teacher, I've only had a few, K.C. Mao in San Francisco, who he said discovered Tai Chi in a Chinese prison camp in the 50s, where he was interred for some reason. It's not clear, probably some kind of political radicalism, China, having said or done something that attracted the scrutiny of the central scrutinizer, CF Frank Zappa. And I remember him explaining very carefully that what you do not want to do is go to a gym and lift weights. Now, I'm not saying don't get exercise, right? In our very constrained context, gym can be a lifesaver. It can be amazing. What he was trying to explain is that you want physical activity that engages more than just your muscles. You want to engage your intelligences, your sensitivity to energy, to its flow where it is clogged, to seeing and imagining it, to directing it, to storing it, to drawing it in and sending it out. And you want quote-unquote exercise in a context, now he didn't say this, but I know he would agree, you want at least 7 domains of deep engagement, not the one that you get by building muscle, doing repetitive exercises. And Tai Chi may look on the surface like dancing, a kind of very slow dancing, but this is really funny. This is the opposite of a weaponization. This is an encryption technique, so that in certain ages, in certain Asian countries, including China and probably Japan, the rulers at various points went after, they saw any kind of religion as deleterious and something you should work hard to eliminate. So they sent soldiers to burn the monasteries and such, the Buddhists and the Taoists and all these people. They had developed, once they realized this was happening, and they were already developing martial arts ways of knowing. And so they had to have a way to practice martial arts. This isn't the only thing that was going on, by the way. But Tai Chi is an encrypted martial art form. Okay? If you look at it, you will not see what it is for or what it is doing. So what they did was they slowed down dramatically, and in that slowing down, they developed the capacity to gather, store, transmute, and direct energies that we don't even have language about, but in Taoism and in the literature of Qigong, Tai Chi, Bagua, many other systems, these assets there is nomenclature for them there. So he was like, yeah, you don't want to be doing, you don't want to just run. Running is amazing. I love it. But Tai Chi is, if running is drinking like a protein shake, Tai Chi is eating a medicinal salad, the dressing of which is somehow both spiritually, physically, metabolically, and somehow transcendentally nourishing. So this is another example of you want more degrees of engagement. And a great example of losing degrees of engagement is the transition, probably over the past, I'm gonna guess 25, 30 years, from physical texts printed on paper that you hold in your hands that have a right and a left side and have a cover, two covers. They probably have art on the cover. When you are reading them, there is a place on the page where a certain text occurs and a side of the portal that the book becomes when you open it. It's very reminiscent of being taught by a non-embodied intelligence, and in fact is something like that. And all of these features of engagement that you have, right? So the paper reflects light and the letters absorb light, and this is crucially important. That absorption is yin and that reflection is yang in Taoist perspectival toys. We have this. But now, instead of that, you have electronic texts. And there's no sense of, in most of these, of which side, is there a right and left side of the page? Mostly not. We've done away with that. That was inconvenient. Is there a cover? No, there's a meta cover. It's called your tablet. Right? And we're pouring electronic light directly into our eyes. Whereas before, what we had was reflected sunlight, candlelight, or incandescent illumination prior to the eye-ripping and biology-destroying rays from LED light sources. So, we gave up a bunch of domain, like when you hold a book in your hands and you open it to a specific segment or depth, then there's a portal there. And the portal is represented by the tablet, but it's a representation. It's not as good as a book. There's not as many domains of engagement. The haptic engagement is minimal. All you do is kind of scroll with your fingertip. Right? You don't turn pages. And there's a bunch of other features that are not easy to elucidate, where memory and intelligence are nourished by the form of a book and are somehow malnourished by the form of an electronic text. But the light relationship is crucially central. Right? I can imagine a comedy skit where people are like, piano is inconvenient, so we're just going to give you this device that when you tap on it, it goes boop. So now, from now on, all you get is like boop, 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 boop. So you can see like the eviction of all of the domains of complexity, tonality, counterpoint, harmony, inverse harmony, negative harmony. All of those are gone, and you just have boop. But it's very convenient. It's efficient. It's really easy to learn how to boop. I can show you boop in 10 seconds, and you'll be able to boop for the rest of your life. Right? No need for long study or dire practice regimens dominating your time, which you want your time to be able to doom scroll. Right? So you don't want to mess it up by introducing developmental nourishment. Well, why would you do that? No, you just want boop. Boop is the way. You can imagine like the opposite of the Mandalorian, where anything that evicts domains of engagement, developmental, efflorescence, nourishment, nurturing, potentiation, catalysis, right? The more of those you get rid of, this is the way, right? It's the damn DeLorean. And this is a vast aspect of the captured systems by which we are dominated and instructed and turned into the tools and reproductive organs of. You know, don't be the reproductive organs of dead inside systems that snuff planets, torment children and parents and ancestors, reduce dreaming to slag, and present you with the most effective route by which you can skip all modes of engagement, intimacy, intelligence, because you've got a really effective tool here. Don't become the let us not become the reproductive organ for such travesties of being, nature, love, intelligence, insight, dreaming, purpose, motive, virtue, beauty. So I'm very grateful that my friend wanted an extremely efficient method with which he could figure out, quote unquote, how to play a song that he wants to play. Because it helped me to see that the amputation and eviction and representation and counterfeiting of modes of engagement in an activity, behavior, practice, etc. As you snip those off, right, just like snipping the wings off a bird and nailing it to a chalkboard and writing some things around it. You get a very efficient, effective toy there. No flying. No more bird. Just the dead artifact of what might have been a living, flying being, seeing, knowing, learning, growing, adventuring, becoming, dreaming, purposively in union with origin and the history and future of all minds and beings in time, space, and beyond. So I think I managed to communicate to my friend, rather urgently, that it's okay to use toys, but what you really want is more domains of engagement for your being, your faculties, your senses, the aspects of your body and mind, and their communion in creative and especially musical behavior. So grateful to all of you who listen and are curious and passionate and beautifully hearted, and beautifully minded, and seeking a way to see and learn and grow in this strange situation in which we find ourselves. To circle back to something I was saying earlier, we weren't born just to enjoy the world. We were born to be the heroes of our time and situation. And we don't have to be an individual hero. Like a certain man who was recently executed in Minnesota. Beautiful and honorable as his life and passing surely are. To stand against tyranny and give one's life to protect another being from wrongdoers, from murderers, from torturers, from red snake, grown hyperactive in the absence of communal spirit, intention, intelligence, history, love. We don't have to be individual heroes, but we come with a mission, and the mission has a time frame, an array of missions actually. And the simplest ones are love all beings, attend them as though they were your own body, your parents, your mother, your father, your children, your own heart, your own hand. None of us are going to get that perfect, myself included. It's a direction. It's a direction of travel. It's a compass, orientation feature. It's not, you have to be perfect at this, or you must succeed, or get it right. We learn and grow together toward, hopefully, the beautification and reverence and love of all beings in our living world. So I think we were born knowing something of the challenges and the times we would find ourselves enmeshed in, and fully willing to pursue the path of the heroine, path of the hero. Not always as an individual, but to forge bodies of communal intelligence and action, effectiveness and tactical awareness, situational awareness, within which we can resurrect the spirit of our origins, natures, and humanity.
Oh my God, the fountain!
The child is wandering with her mom and saying, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" while I'm making this recording. Beautiful. So let us bear these treasures in our hearts and minds, and remember that the beauty of the living world is the mirror of the beauty of our interiority and relations. And even where we make mistakes and get it wrong, we are growing and learning with and for each other and the history and future of all beings and minds, all hearts and dreams, all children, all parents, all elders, all brothers and sisters, all progenitors, all progeny. Very grateful to all of you who listen, participate, comment, share, ask questions, criticize. And I'm grateful for those who support my channel directly via Patreon or contributions, even a one-time contribution. Thank you. It's very meaningful to me. A very small amount of support is profound in its effect. And I'm grateful for all of the beings who sheltered and loved and mentored me. They hope to produce a vehicle that would conserve and integrate their missions and dreams. And I have endeavored to become 5 kinds of that being. So thank you. My blessings to you and your lineages and your progenies, whether they are human or not. Those of us who have animals are parenting and mothering and fathering them. Those of us who tend to living places are parenting and mothering and fathering them, and being mothered and fathered by them in return. It's very beautiful. We are all parents, we are all children. Both, always. There is no other way to be. So, I honor these matters. I wish you beauty, liberation, insight, amazing dreams, beautiful adventures, wise and playful, creative companions, and that the music of your spirit may prevail in our present age of dissociation, representation, eviction, convenience, and deficiency. May your ways and heart be blessed and brilliant. May the spirits of origin and intelligence, insight, love, creativity, and play dwell with you always. And may you experience the fulfillment of the promise of your human incarnation this time around. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to learning together again very soon. There's that horrible noise of the machine. Let us use it, let us put that on our compass and travel in the opposite direction together. Into music, into beauty, into anamnesis. And the resurrection of our spirits, our hearts. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye for now.